walk me through there how so you learned about Bitcoin. Explain to me, how did you learn about Bitcoin? You saw the digital payment for you, and then yeah, maybe also talk to me a bit about the investments that you make, because I mean I think you were, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you were the first kind of non engineer person that really started being very aggressive in that space. And I think if it weren't for you, a lot of people, including myself, would have not had the same approach to Bitcoin, because yeah, everything would have been way too technical and maybe not to understand.
Yeah, I was definitely the first business person to take any sort of interest in this at all. I heard about it, though, in relation to the Silk Road on a libertarian radio show. And I heard, people are using Bitcoin to buy and sell drugs. Well, I wasn't interested in the drugs at all, but I knew from, selling firecrackers online and in other computer parts, what the heck type of money could they possibly be using to do this, right? You can't do that with PayPal. You can't do that with a wire transfer. You can't do that with checks. And so I started looking into Bitcoin to see what is this Bitcoin thing? What's it about? And I had enough of a computer science background to understand how it worked technically. And I had plenty of an economics background to understand why it would wind up being useful as money. And the real key, though, there was with the computer science side, that the only way to shut down Bitcoin would be to turn off the entire internet in the entire world and keep it turned off. Well, it's game on, because now we have a payment tool that can't be turned off. And maybe it's because I had experienced that in the past. I was a user of another company called eGold that allowed people to do payments online using gold. And maybe this is also part of why I've been so hostile to the idea that Bitcoin is just a store of value. You use a custodian. So with eGold, there was a custodian that held all the gold for you and every other user, and they had the gold in their vaults, and you would just transfer around the ownership of the gold electronically. So I would say, okay, pay from my eGold wallet to Julian's wallet, $100 worth of gold or 100 euros worth of gold or whatever and they would transfer that amount worth of gold at whatever the exchange rate from gold to euros or dollars were at that time. The gold physically would stay put, but the account balances would update. And it was a really, really cool way to be able to use gold as money. And it was starting to get more and more traction. More and more people were using it. Some of my customers were actually starting to use it to pay me for the computer memory. And then some other users of the website apparently were using it for something that the US government didn't like. So the US government came in and physically seized all of the gold from the eGold company and then put the guys that were running it in jail. And so every legitimate eGold user like myself, we lost our gold. We didn't have custody of ourselves. The company got shut down. The US government seized the gold. Our money was gone. And so that's one of my big fears that I see with all these custodial solutions for Bitcoin. The moment the government doesn't like it enough, they can go to any of these custodial platforms and say, give us Julian's Bitcoin, or give us all of your users' Bitcoin. That's a disaster. And if you think that that's wild, crazy talk, in the US, they did that exact same thing historically. They said nobody's allowed to own gold in America. And if you have any gold, you have to give it to us right now. And if you don't, you're going to go to jail. And maybe there's similar, points in history in Germany where similar things happened. And I'm sure it's happened in other countries around the world. If everybody around the world is using their Bitcoin in a custodian platform, governments can just come in and take it, and you've lost most of the benefits of using a blockchain and some sort of digital currency there. It's very, very, very important that users be able to take custody of the funds themselves and hold the private keys themselves. Everybody doesn't have to do that all the time, but it's very important that it is practical and plausible for people to be able to do that. Otherwise, governments can just come in and screw up the whole thing all over again, like they've done time and time again throughout history.
How do you see Coinbase then right now, especially with the IPO? On the one hand, they're one of the largest onboarders of fiat money into the crypto space. How do you see that?
Coinbase has been a fantastic tool to get more people to be able to use cryptocurrencies. And the fact that they're having an IPO is fantastic. Like, all of these things are great. But even Coinbase recognizes the more custody they have of other people's crypto, the bigger a target they become for governments, and the bigger a target they become for black hat hackers, right? So if they're holding billions of dollars of cryptocurrency, every hacker from anywhere on the planet is going to be trying to hack into Coinbase and figure out how they can steal that crypto as well. And the more money they have, the more governments are going to be paying attention to them. So even Coinbase is aware of this, and that's why they've launched other things. They have what's called the Coinbase Wallet, which is an actual wallet that gives their users the private keys as well. And you'll see all these exchanges like Kraken and others say very clearly, You can deposit your funds for trading, but as soon as you're done, please withdraw them to your own wallet. We don't want to be responsible for your money. And I think that's why in the early days, a lot of people don't know this, Coinbase and blockchain.com now were the same company. It was one single company. And then
I didn't know
the
that.
two founders, most people don't know this. The two founders, Brian Armstrong and Ben Reeves, had a difference of vision there. Brian at that time thought that it would be just fine for Coinbase to take custody of everybody's funds. And Ben Reeves thought that everybody should have their private keys themselves and the user should be in charge of the funds themselves. So the one single company split into two companies that then wound up becoming blockchain. Back then it was blockchain.info, now it's blockchain.com, but and coinbase.com. And Coinbase is about to have an IPO. Maybe blockchain will at some point here in the future as well.
But it just had a large round. I think they're valued $5 billion or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they just announced, I think earlier today, $300 and something million that they raised, and that was on top of another $100 million they raised last month. And I think the most recent valuation was over $5 billion there as well. They have more than 70 million wallets, and those are real wallets. I guess that's one thing that also is kind of frustrating in the ecosystem. So many things are being called wallets that aren't wallets. If you don't have the private keys yourself, it's not a wallet, it's a custodian account. And so blockchain.com is an actual wallet where the users have the keys themselves. Bitcoin.com is an actual wallet where the users have the keys themselves. Things like Binance, that's an account. Kraken's an account. Coinbase has an account system. They also have a wallet system. More people are busy using the account at the moment. Hopefully that'll change in the future, but it's very important for people to understand the difference between an account and an actual wallet. And I'm a much bigger fan of wallets. So way back in 2012-ish, I think it was at this point, I had the opportunity right after blockchain and Coinbase had split into two companies. I could have invested in both. Instead, I only invested in blockchain because I wanted people to have their keys themselves. And the reason I didn't invest in Coinbase isn't because I didn't like Brian or what they were doing. It was because I thought people should have their own keys themselves. And so I only invested in blockchain. That's still going to work out just fine for me. But if I had a time machine, I would wind up investing in both, I suppose.
Who did you get your first Bitcoins from?
I got my first Bitcoin ever from Gavin Andreessen's Bitcoin faucet. He had a faucet that I think it gave me a whole Bitcoin right there from a faucet.
Yeah, but then it was less than $1.
Yeah, exactly. It was 10 cents, 15 cents or something like that. And would just give it out to anybody who asked for one. And that went on for a long time. And it's, I guess, kind of worth pointing out today, there's still lots of faucets today, but not for Bitcoin, because you can't do it with Bitcoin because the fees are so high. But there's lots of faucets for Bitcoin Cash or other coins out there. And so that's just, I guess, one more indication for me, like the magic that made Bitcoin so exciting. And it breaks my heart to say, but it's not possible on the BTC chain anymore because there aren't faucets out there where you can give anybody that's new to Bitcoin a little bit of Bitcoin. Whereas there's one website that I have no stake in whatsoever. I just find it incredibly interesting. It's noise.cash. And it's giving out it's like a social media platform, but it's paying out all sorts of, just a penny here or a penny there for people for doing social media stuff. And apparently like tens of thousands of Filipinos and other people in like low wage countries in the world are busy signing up on that website and doing social media stuff and getting a penny here and a penny there of Bitcoin Cash on chain that can be sent right there to their wallet. And it's kind of a reminiscent of the early days of Bitcoin because there were very similar services happening way back then. But I guess that's my reminiscing of the past with blockchain and Coinbase. I should have invested in both, but at least I did at least one of the two. So that worked out okay.